to the other meetings, to the other items that need a quorum to be addressed. Okay. I think that if we move from the roll call for the quorum requiring parts, then the next steps, the next items on the agenda will be the update on the EAC's work as it relates to the subcommittee structure. And I think that Leah Goldstein-Moses would have, it's going to give us a quick checking on the outcomes and process changes to the structure of the EAC and the committees that she's been working on. Can you do that now, Leah?
Sure, and I'll just share a few updates and take questions, and then I have one discussion item.
Okay, sounds great.
Yeah, and please, for others that have been involved in the subcommittee work, I'll pause and after I give my few updates and see if there's any other updates others would like to offer. So over the last month, we've been very lucky to have some subcommittee activity. It's rested in 3 areas. The first is the housing subcommittee has continued to discuss what our priorities are, and we haven't had a chance to meet again, although I believe we have a path forward to meeting again soon. In addition, with the Metro Transit interest in meeting with us later today, a request went out to our full EAC asking for interest in serving on the Transit Committee, and there was some subcommittee, and there was some interest in that. I didn't serve on that, so I can't give an update about what happened there. And then the third area of work is continuing to talk about subcommittees in general and how they will serve us. In that third area of work, one of the requests that came forward was a little bit of additional information about the roles different people would play and how those would really support the subcommittees. And so I'm hoping over the next month to touch base with a couple different people on the EAC, those who serve on the council as a whole, those who've served on the subcommittees, some EAC members who are not currently serving on a subcommittee, get a little bit of input and start shaping out those roles for consideration when we meet again. I think that is all the updates I would share. I will pause and see if others who've served on the subcommittees or who've been involved in some of the general structural work have anything to add with updates.
And I just want to take this opportunity to again thank Leah for all the hard work that she's put into doing this. So really appreciate it, and your leadership and insights are really helping us move forward with this very important work of organizing the subcommittees and the processes for the EAC. So thank you. Any comments, questions, anything that the members would like to discuss at this time regarding the subcommittee structure? Do we have a roster or a list of the upcoming meetings of the subcommittees? If somebody's interested in participating or sitting in or listening into those upcoming meetings?
Currently, the Housing Subcommittee doesn't have a meeting scheduled yet, so I believe we'll be doing that over the next few days. For those who have been on the Transit Subcommittee, is there something coming up that you'd like to share?
Not at this point. I was just wondering, because I saw from via the email that there were some people interested in being on the Transportation Committee, and I I still am interested to being on the transportation committee. So should I be a point person and schedule a meeting next, or should I wait till the standing committee for next Tuesday to?
T, this is Mitzi,
Yes.
and thank you. There are 4 members. It's yourself and Edward and Sarah and one other person.
Oh, I can't remember that person's name.
But yes, I'm hoping that after tonight's presentation by Transit, that you will have your ideas about how you want to proceed,
Okay.
and that at that time, Irina and I can certainly work with you, T, to get that initial meeting scheduled.
All right.
Because you'll be meeting, hopefully, with members of the transit staff team.
Oh, perfect.
And perhaps on some of these, some of their work that they're going to talk to you about tonight.
Okay.
So we'll work with you to get that meeting scheduled.
Yes, yes. And as I said, I have some handymen working on fixing my door, so it might be a little loud here.
I appreciate that, also the point about continuing communication about just maybe here's what's going on this week, or here's what's coming up, or keep an eye out for this. So for the time being, I can coordinate with staff to do that, and then maybe we'll switch that out to someone else holding that role from each of the subcommittees as we move forward. But for the next month or so, I can coordinate with staff to help do that. That was a great request. Thank you.
Excellent. Oops. So right now we have the transportation subcommittee, we have the housing subcommittee, right?
Correct.
And
Yes.
any other subcommittees that are up and running or getting in the process of formation at this time?
There were 2 others that there was interest in when we first started talking about subcommittees, and I would recommend that we not launch them right away until we get a little bit of our kind of processes and practices ironed out. Staff indicated that they're really happy to help support us and coordinate us, but launching a lot of new things at once would be a challenge. The 2 others were operations, which was looking at contracting, employment, and other factors at the council. And the 4th was accessibility, I believe. Yeah. Okay. So once we report back we'll report back each month about how things are going, and maybe in another few months we'll be ready to launch those. One of the things that's been really nice about the 2 that have already been launched is there is also a parallel interest from the Met Council departments to have EAC support and assistance around a few areas. In a little bit, we're going to have the Metro Transit presentation, which will help inform that subcommittee's work. And the LCA has come to us a couple of times now and provided some information that's helping informing the housing subcommittee's work. So, so we're getting those launched. We'll keep reporting back, and I think as there is both an opportunity and we feel ready as a full EAC, we'll launch the other 2.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, I'm just gonna come in and just mention about the work group that myself and EAC member Michael Luceni plus Roderick Southall and Mitzi and Mitzi, what's the name of the other person involved in the
Sarah.
Sarah.
Yeah.
So you might recall that there was an email sent requesting interest in the anti-racism lens work group. Just an idea of um, how to bring an anti-racism lens and into the practices of the council, and maybe Mitzi can tell us more about the official language of the work group. I think I'm butchering the purpose, but
you did fine. You did
okay.
fine.
Thank you. So yeah.
So all that, what's going on is that we have a toolbox. We have a racial equity theory of change mapping process in that toolbox that's designed to assist staff to understand how to integrate racial equity into their work. And it's sort of a lens process that we're working on that, have been for a while, to be able to have that be part of the resources and support that we provide to the council staff to use, again, to integrate equity into their work. And then we also have seen this anti-racism tool that's been developed by the state of Minnesota. It's actually wonderful. And so we put together a work group with the members that council member just mentioned, and we had our first meeting to sort of look at that tool and to be able to adapt it so that we could use it and make it, modify it somewhat for use here at the council. So that's what the intent of that work group is. And we had a fantastic first meeting, and we'll continue to work on it until it's ready. And at that time, we're going to bring it back to the EAC for some feedback. And I understand council member would like to take it to the CAL as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, and so this is, like Mitzi said, we're just on the very early stages of the workings of the work group. So absolutely, we will keep the EAC informed as we move forward, and eventually, when the work is more done, then we will have a fuller discussion here at the EAC to get the members' input. But I committed myself to making sure that the council, the Met Council as a whole, the governing structure is aware and committed to the implementation of this tool, because we certainly need it. And I can share with you that we had many discussions at the council level on issues of equity and diversity, and because of everything that it has been going on in the last several months, I can definitely say that at least Chair Selly and the senior leadership do get it, that the need for transformational policies and procedures here at the Met Council. So once we got that buy-in, then the hard work, that's like 90% of what's needed, having the leadership showing the desire to implement serious and deep change. In comparison, getting the structures in place it's rather easy, but it's still gonna be a lot of work to make sure that those transformational initiatives are not only put in place but adhered to and fully implemented. So I think that this is a good time for the EAC to be here, to be at the Met Council, because there's this willingness, this interest to really move forward with equity and equality at the Met Council. So we'll stay tuned, because we'll keep you informed as this process moves forward. Any other comments about the subcommittee work? Anything else? Any questions? No? Okay. At this time, then, just following the agenda, if we can move to the Metro Transit Public Engagement, and Robin Kaufman, the Director of Administration, is here, right, to provide the update?
Good evening, Chair. I am here.
Okay, excellent.
Hey.
Thank you.
Can you see me?
Yes. Hi.
Hello. Hello. Good evening, Chair and council members or committee members. I'm losing my voice, so if I have to pause for a second to get a drink of water or something, I appreciate the grace on that. But I'm here. We had a really good discussion I think it was last month already. And so I'm very excited to be back and to give you a little bit more detail on how we've been revising our engagement strategy, and also to talk a little bit about, give you an update on some of the things that we've done based on your feedback from last month with regards to our phase 2 Network Next engagement process. So I've got a short PowerPoint. I want to hopefully leave enough time, or most of the time, for discussion and further ideas and comments. So I'm going to jump through this fairly quick. So I'm going to talk a little bit, like I said, about public engagement, and if I could have the next slide. I'm going to talk a little bit about some engagement that we did in August called Listening and Learning Through Crisis. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and what we learned through that process. And how it's influencing our engagement. I'm going to give you a little bit of an update on how, like I said, we're restructuring our engagement, and then also on Network Next. So next slide. So in August, we had Metro Transit had so many projects underway, and we'd done a lot of engagement back in 2019. And, COVID and the death of George Floyd and a lot of the civil unrest resulted in, things kind of being put on pause, and I said, we can't just continue with some of this, based on what we heard in 2019. We really need to go back out to the community and say, has anything changed? Have your transportation needs changed? Have your priorities changed? And so we put a pause, and we spent a month really trying to listen to our customers. And so I'd initially set a goal of about 1,000 responses, and I was targeting a goal of 45% BIPOC representation. So we used a variety of strategies, and it's very similar to what I was talking about with Network Next last month, where we did a lot of website and social media and virtual media, electronic media. But we also spent a lot of time out on the streets at our stations. We had about 28 shifts with 2 staff, and we were also out there with our operators and some of our police officers, distributing masks and having people sign up for the TAP program, and also just having conversations with them, less of a formal survey and more of just a conversation. And as a result of that, we actually did get about 1,800 people that we talked to, either via survey or in person. 1,400 of those surveys were online, and 400 of the surveys were done in person. Kind of that conversation that I was telling you about. And we were very successful. We actually achieved, in this case, we did achieve 42% BIPOC representation. You can see the top pie chart shows the breakdown of ethnicity at the top, and the bottom pie chart shows the breakdown of ethnicity pre-COVID of what our ridership is. And so that's roughly 45% white, and then, I'm sorry, 45% people of color, and like I said, we got about 41 or 42% people of color for the listening and learning. So next slide. So what we learned from this is that the demographics and the responses differ between the online and the in-person surveys. And as we know, we do need to use multiple strategies to make sure we do get that diverse community and that diverse voice. We found that some strategies were more effective than others. And as we found out, a lot of people just don't have time for time, energy, capacity for meetings right now. So those are some lessons that we've learned. And like I said, we're applying to some of our engagement strategies going forward. Next slide. So this I think is the most powerful slide, and I'm calling it Survey Method Matters. And what this slide is showing is, as you can see on the left side is a bar chart that shows the breakdown of ethnicity, race and ethnicity for the in-person surveys. And you can see there that over 50% of our in-person surveys were from people that identified as Black or African American, and less than 25% were white. Whereas if we do the online survey, that's almost 50% white, and less than 10% people identify as Black or African American. And the other interesting thing to note is that over 25% of the online respondents didn't even disclose or complete the demographic data. And our research staff have indicated that a lot of times that those individuals are most regularly identify as white as well. So this is just really important because I think, a lot of times there's just there's the inclination that says, oh, we can get a survey, we can get 1,400 responses with hardly ever doing, very much work. And yes, that's true, you can get a lot of responses, but it's really not representing the community and our riders. And so it's been really powerful to show this and use this as a demonstration of why we really do need to spend the time out on the streets and out in the community and going to those community gathering spots. Next slide. And so this, like I said, we did this work in August, and I just completed the summary report, and the more detailed or longer presentation is posted online along with my summary report. But I think one of the coolest things is I was working with our research staff, and they helped put together this tool, and this tool allows us to actually dive into the data, and we've actually posted this tool out on the website. And so if you want to go to it or the public wants to go to it, we thought that was really important to be able to show the information and be that transparent and allow people to really dive into the information. So the link is down here. If we have time during the question part, I can certainly give a demo of it if people are interested in that. Next slide. So the second part that I wanted to talk about is the outreach team. I've been working on restructuring some of the existing staff. We had 3 customer advocates that I've reclassified as outreach staff, and that has allowed us to double our outreach staff to 6 people. And then I also just hired an associate outreach coordinator, Nasser Musa, that's going to be starting on November 30th. I'm very excited, and he's going to be working on, one of the things he's going to be working on is the Network Next project. And then the next thing, the other part of this was that I've taken the 6 staff and I've assigned them to geographic areas. In the past, we've had the outreach coordinators assigned by project. So if you're, say, in South Minneapolis, you could have one outreach person working on the D line, another one on the E line, another one on the Southwest project. So, you just end up with a lot of people working on a lot of different projects. And while it's efficient for Met Council or Metro Transit staff, it's really inconvenient for the community. And if we want to really build those relationships with the community, it's really important that we have one person that they can really start to build a relationship with and get to know, and that we can get to know the community as well. Next slide. And so this is kind of the breakdown of the geographic areas. This map is also posted on our website, and so I'm not going to go through the specific details of who's assigned to what, but we're really, again, mentioning that this is, the goal of this is to really build the relationships with the community and the organizations. One of the things we keep hearing is like, oh, I just went to a meeting, last week, last month, and I just, answered these exact same questions. And so another reason to have the outreach coordinators assigned is that they start to build that knowledge base, and we don't have to keep asking the same questions over and over again, and we can retain that information. It provides one point of contact, so they know who to contact. They're not like, okay, if I talk to that person for this project and that person for that project. And again, making it transparent. They're starting to reach out and build relationships, and starting to reach out to the community in their areas and starting to build those relationships. Next slide, please. So with that, again, I think I took about 3 or 4 pages of notes, typed notes at our meeting last week or last month. And again, I just really appreciated it. And we've already started to implement some of those changes. We've added, we've already got lined up 2 series over the next 2 months. It's going to be December and January. We've got advertisements and articles that are going to be put into M-Shale, Sportsman Recorder, Hmong Times, Vita Isabor, and Access Press. I think a lot of those were papers that you had suggested. There's 1 or 2 more that we're trying to reach out to, but we haven't heard back from yet. We're going to continue to do more in-person engagement, even in the wintertime. We're looking forward to that, and we're also working on seeing if we can get signage put up in the shelters or in the stops, so that, with a QR code, and people can just take a survey on their phone while they're waiting for the bus. Excuse me. I also reached out to our community development folks and have asked if we can get the Section 8 voucher holders list, and if they'd be willing to help us send an email to them. So when we have the survey ready to go for this phase 2, we'll be able to include them and make sure that they get a link to the survey as well. And then we're also reaching out now to community and neighborhood organizations, seeing if we can get in their newsletters or on their meetings. And we have a list of probably 75 to 100 groups right now, but if there are other, I think I shared that. I think that list was included in last month's pre-meeting packet. So if there's other organizations not on that list that you would recommend, we are happy to take suggestions. And also, if you could help us build that, kind of make that first reach out, that would be fabulous too. So I think that was my last slide. Yes. So I'd love, like I said, if there's any comments or questions, or if anyone would like a demo of the tool, I'd be happy to do that. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That was a great presentation. Actually, you had one of the slides had the photos of your team.
Yes.
If we can go back, can you name them so at least so we can put a name to the face?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So starting on the left, that is Joanna Hubbard Riviera. The next one is Yumi Nagako. Sorry. The next one is Doug Cook. The woman in the middle is Liz Jones. We've got Cody Olson, and then we've got Juan Rangel. And then NASA is going to be joining us on November.
And you said that they will be assigned to specific districts or regions?
Yes.
Or geographical areas, I should say?
Yes.
Oh, I see. It's in the small print there. Who's handling? Okay.
Yes.
So that's good to have the names and contact information of the folks that will be handling the different geographical areas. do these areas overlap with council areas? I mean, this council districts or any other? Or what's the rationale for the specific geographical area?
Mr. Chair and committee members, they generally they kind of follow the council member districts.
Okay.
I think like Joanna is mostly in the Northwest Metro, and kind of the reason it's not the full, for example, it's not completely full Hennepin County. It's because the transit district, if you go west of there, it's the Plymouth Metrolink and Maple Grove.
That's right. That's right.
So that's why there's that kind of that hole there. Not that you wouldn't, if Maple Grove or someone in Plymouth called, we would obviously work to assist them as much as possible and direct them to the right contacts. So it kind of follows council member districts. It's also very similar to service development has staff assigned, service or planning staff assigned by geographic areas. So it kind of follows that as well.
Okay. Thank you. And I'm looking at the chat, and Sarah and Anita have their hands up. And my apologies for not paying attention to that. If you have a question, can you just holler at me so I'll recognize you. You can, I'll let you come in. Let me start with Sarah, which I believe was the first one to indicate that you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
And thank you, Robin, for that presentation. In addition to sitting on this committee, I also sit on the State Pol Transportation Advisory Committee. And it just occurs to me, because I know that the city does a lot of community engagement and outreach as well. And since you're dividing your staff in specific geographic areas, it occurs to me that it might be a nice opportunity to connect with, I'm speaking for St. Paul, but perhaps everywhere that you serve, to coordinate as possible, because I know your staff are very busy. But because you're hearing from the same constituents, right? And so particularly with communities that historically have been difficult to reach and that you're really focusing on connecting with and building those relationships, I think it might be really valuable to, when possible, team up with them just to learn more about the community and create more of a united front. I know that they do a lot of project-based outreach, which is different, but I also think that a lot of times when they're doing those projects and those infrastructure improvements, a lot of times what the community has to say really is about pedestrian crossing, really is about the bus stop, really is about kind of like how safe they feel. And I feel like those are things that really apply across the board and perhaps could generate some cooperative and collaborative approaches as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee member. That's a great suggestion.
Just a quick follow-up before having Anita, because just to clarify this point, as far as your staff is concerned, if any of the EAC members wants to share ideas or work on a joint project or get some feedback, shall we go through you to arrange communication, or can we just reach out to them directly?
Mr. Chair, that's a great question. I think maybe just to get started, maybe work through me, and then I can help. I can help work with them just to help make the connection. And we are kind of setting up new systems and new relationships and everything. So maybe just to make sure that we're getting connected and being responsive, I think that would be great.
Okay, excellent.
Yeah.
And Anita, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Robin, just for my clarification, could you give me a reminder of what kind of questions are being asked to the writers, or if there's survey questions or whatever, so that I can see where they might tie into some of the organizations that I know that may benefit from providing information and feedback?
Sure, Mr. Chair and committee member, are you thinking specifically for Network Next for that upcoming work, or just in general?
Living in North Minneapolis, we have the Bottineau line coming through, and a lot of people need to know about that, or have a lot of questions, or have never ridden, any type of transportation in that mode. But also, I work with a lot of environmental groups, and the light rail as transportation, as alternative transportation, comes up quite often in those groups, and I can see where a connection with those environmental groups and Met Council's transportation and engagement could be beneficial to both parties.
Absolutely, Mr. Chair and committee member. I think it might be good to see if we could have an update on the Blue Line extension project before this committee at some point. Sam O'Connell is the manager of a senior manager of public affairs for that project, and will be leading the public engagement process as we decide on next steps. So that might be a good topic to have her come and talk at an upcoming presentation or upcoming agenda.
So what kind of questions are you asking?
So for example, for the last round of Network Next, we talked about, we asked people, we gave them 11 corridors and said, which would be your priority? Which one should we build? Which one should be the next corridor? Or which ones would you like to see proceed? We asked them about what some of their priorities are. So, ask them, I think the list of questions was about equity, about sustainability, about transit, transit supportive lifestyle. So we gave them some options and said, of those, what are your highest priorities? Coming up with some of the other outreach, I'm trying to think of other examples of other projects. We've got some other projects that we're going to be talking about next year, as far as we're looking at doing a Route 3 Better Bus Routes project, and so we'll be asking people if they're impacted or if they like the idea of adding a BRT or adding improvements to some of the stations. Trying to think of other, so just kind of asking them just different value questions, or how they would be impacted, or what they would like to see, happen.
Okay.
If there's other if there's other questions that we should be asking, I'd be happy to take some of those suggestions too, especially as we just do general outreach.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions for Robin? Nope. Robin, my mother had a homemade remedy for cough. It was 3 parts drink. 1 part was honey, the second part was orange juice, and the third part was rum.
Okay.
I don't know if it really worked, but the rum really makes you forget your cough. So
I'll try that after this meeting is over. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, it worked for me when I was in kindergarten. So just saying. Well,
Mr.
thank
Chair,
you.
I think Nalima had her hand. Does Nalima had her hand up?
Nalima, you have a question or comment?
That's okay. I will pass. That's all right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda. And next, please welcome Mitzi Kennedy, who is the Equity Manager. She will give us a brief, high-level overview of the Council's divisional equity goals in preparation for the committee's 2021 work plan. So welcome, Mitzi.
Thank you, and good evening, committee members. I wanted to first remind you of your EAC annual work plan for 2020, and those are your 4 priorities that you have listed and have been working on for 2021. Next slide. So last Thursday, your co-chair, Nalima, asked me to provide a high-level overview of what might be equity initiatives and goals that council divisions may be planning or working towards in 2021, so that as you prepare for your December deadline for coming up with your 2021 work plan, that you would have some understanding of what the council might be doing. So that was really short notice. I had to put together this information that very night, so I did not get clarification or details, but I was able to come up with these bullet points based on some documents and briefs that I had access to on that day. But these may or may not end up being what each division ends up focusing on. This gives you some understanding of the types of equity projects or initiatives that they could do. And I want you to remember that you're the EAC. You could have staff from our different divisions come talk with you directly about their equity work. Seeing some of these initiatives and some of these bullet points and activities that I'm going to present might cause you to want to have a lot more information. But this is just a starting place for you to be considering what you want to focus on in your 2021 work plan. So you see the Metro Transit bullet points here. They're here tonight. They will discuss with you some of their equity initiatives that they'd like to focus on in 2021. And like we talked about, the first thing that we talked about during the meeting, that if public transit continues to be one of your priorities, then your transportation subcommittee can work with them on this list and how to move forward in collaboration with them. So I won't go into this at all. I'll let Leslie talk to you about these items during her presentation later on. Next slide. Environmental services. ES provides wastewater resources to municipal and industrial customers to enhance a favorable economic environment for growth and development for all. They promote sustainable water resources through planning and technical assistance. I'm not going to go through all of these bullets, but what I will highlight is that they intend to design a new strategic plan in 2021 with a focus on creating racial equity goals, using an equity lens in their processes, and engaging with BIPOC communities. So there's a lot there that you could become involved in or ask for more information about. Next slide. So operations, HR is one of your current work plan priorities. HR takes the lead on workforce equity for the council as a whole. They'll be working with each division and department to review workforce data and helping them to make decisions about what needs to be done to improve diversity and inclusion. Decisions will prioritize hiring and retaining a diverse workforce that reflects the people in the region. Each division will be able to get their hands on disaggregated data, analyze it, and design specific recruitment and retention strategies that are measurable for their own operational needs. Next slide. Community development. I got carried away on their bullets. There's a lot of information there. I've listed some of their affordable housing and parks programs, but the division has more work units than are identified here. But the highlights are that they remain committed to advancing equity in all their programs and policies. Equity is embedded into the fabric of their work. They're on the third iteration of their Racial Equity Action Plan. So they've had that action plan for at least 3 years or more. The research team, who many of you know very well, sits within CD. They've engaged with the EAC every year around critical research issues. CD is also involved with several affordable housing opportunities across the region, and they advance equity and program scoring criteria, outreach, and community engagement. Next slide. The Metropolitan Transportation Services, MTS, their equity initiatives and efforts are across planning, contracted transit service, internal operations, and public participation opportunities. In 2021, they're going to be doing some equity analysis of safety outcomes by race and income. They oversee the regional solicitation, so they'll be looking at how to incorporate equity into project selection and design. They work with MNDOT, so they'll be working with them on highway investments to select and utilize equity metrics. They plan to also look at COVID impact research that may expose disproportionate travel and economic impacts for BIPOC communities. The next slide is our Office of Equal Opportunity, OEO. That's my department. Equity sits in that office. The MCUB and DBE programs are housed in OEO. We will continue to work with all divisions to increase spending with underutilized businesses. We're working with GARE to implement a comprehensive racial equity training initiative for all council employees. We'll be working with each division on implementing the 2020 Affirmative Action Plan. We're responsible for coordinating the council's accessibility programs. And of course, we staff the EAC and staff engagement efforts of employees. Again, this has been a very basic, high-level overview. It's not everything that we're doing involving equity throughout the council, but this information can serve to get you started with planning your 2021 work plan priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mitzi. And I'm looking at the function here on the side of my screen. And Sarah, it shows that you have your hand raised. Do you have a question now, or this is from last time?
I apologize, Mr. Chair. It's from last time. I'll remove it. Thank you.
Okay. Anita?
Yeah, I have a question.
Okay.
For Mitzi about the environmental. And as we're looking into climate change and people adjusting to climate and being concerned about greenhouse gases and energy, is there anything, I don't see anything about environmental justice.
Right, and that's why I was careful to say to you that this is a listing of goals that I was able to put my hands on in a very short period of time. And this is just to give you some hints at what ES might be working on.
Okay.
I would like you to hold this question and that we could either have them come and talk about some of your ideas that you want to speak to them about in terms of whether or not they're working on climate goals. And I know that they are. I just don't know the details or anything about specifically what they're doing. So this is like a teaser, right? So
Yes.
that you can think about what's missing or what would we want to hear from any of these divisions and departments more about their equity work. And then we can plan to make that happen.
Okay. Just to let the committee members know that there are community members who are specifically starting to look at what's coming out of the chimneys of the wastewater factory over in Pig's Eye of St. Paul, the Minneapolis wastewater and St. Paul wastewater system, and what's being burnt inside there, what's ever flushed down our toilets that isn't discarded or lifted out through the wastewater is burned, and that includes toxins and medications and other chemicals. And so there's community concern, and that's an environmental justice issue. So that's why I asked this question, because that's something that as equity advisors we should be aware of. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I've been advised that Council Member Phil Sterner is here, so welcome, Phil. So now we have a quorum. So we'll finish up the discussion on this item, and then we'll go back to the items that we weren't able to approve at the beginning of the meeting today, since we didn't have a quorum. But let's finish off first to see if there's any more questions about Mitzi's presentation. Any other comments, Mitzi? Anything that you need from us at this time?
No, I'll be working with you and your co-chair to schedule perhaps a work group, or we'll be using the standing committee to work out the process for you to build your 2021 priorities. So the next standing committee meeting could be very important. Nalima, do you want to comment on that process?
There's not much to comment about. I think hopefully we'll have more of a discussion during the standing committee meeting about what that will look like.
Thank you.
And I think this is somebody had a question? No? Okay. I was just going to say that this is a good time to really review the work plan for the EAC, as Mitzi and mentioned, and as all of us know, that all the changes that have happened in the last 8-9 months kind of perhaps shifted some of the priorities of what the EAC should be looking into, or perhaps not. But I think we are in a time and a moment in which we need to look back, but also look forward as to what challenges have changed and what issues perhaps need more attention, or perhaps even the same issues, but looking at them from a different perspective. And like I mentioned before, was this willingness of the council to really listen and be receptive and creative to implementing real change. So I think this is a good opportunity to really have an impact if we move forward and be creative, and also not to be, we always encourage, I would like to encourage all the EAC members to speak up. I mean, this is the time in which ideas or suggestions that were crazy in 2019, maybe they're mainstream. They will be mainstream in 2021. So I think we need to think outside of the box and just be creative and try to develop ideas that would really help us moving. So thank you, Mitzi. And I think this time we'll be going back to the items that we can do now since we have a quorum. So we need to call a roll call first now. Is that correct, Irina?
It is indeed.
Okay. So we'll be calling a roll call. So I call this meeting to order, and then Irina will call the roll call. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I will be calling first name, then last name for this first roll call, and then all of the additional roll calls after that will just be by last name. So Lenice Block, Andreas Boland, Desrelyn Cole, Leah Goldstein-Moses,
Present.
Francisco Gonzalez,
Present.
Nicholas Jenkins, Chai Lee,
Present.
Sonia Lewis, Michael Luceni, Edward McDonald, Juliana Miller,
Present.
T. Wei,
Present.
Richard Paul, Sarah Rudolph,
Present.
Mohammed Sheikh, Nalima Sitate Munene,
Present.
Philip Sterner, Mia Ulysses, Anita Irvina Davis.
Present.
Excellent. So the first order of official business is the approval of the agenda. And may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
To approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to approve the agenda? See no discussion, then Irina, can you please call the roll call?
Yes. Block, Boland, Cole, Goldstein-Moses, Gonzalez. Thank you.
Aye.
Jenkins, Lee,
Aye.
Lewis, Luceni, McDonald, Miller,
Aye.
Wei,
Aye.
Paul, Rudolph,
Aye.
Sheikh, Sitate Munene,
Aye.
Sterner, Ulysses, Irvina Davis.
Aye.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And our next order of business is approval of the minutes from the September 15, 2020 meeting. As you might recall, we did not have a quorum during that the last meeting. So at this point, may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the September 2020 meeting?
Moved by Lee.
Moved by Lee. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Sterner.
Okay. Any discussion? No? Okay. Irina, would you call the roll for this?
Yes. Block, Boland, Cole, Goldstein-Moses,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Jenkins, Lee,
Aye.
Lewis, Viceni, McDonald, Miller,
Aye.
Wei, Paul, Rudolph,
Aye.
Sheikh, Sitati Munene,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Ulysses, Ravina Davis.
Aye.
Thank you.
Excellent. Motion carries. So we're almost there with the procedural matter. So thanks for hanging in there. Our next order of business is approval of the minutes from the October 2020 meeting. And by the way, you all received copies of these via email. And may I have a motion to approve the minutes from the October 2020 meeting?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second by Lee.
Okay. Any discussion? No? Okay. Seeing no discussion, Irina, will you call the last roll call?
Certainly. Locke, Boland, Cole, Goldstein Moses,
Aye.
Gonzalez,
Aye.
Jenkins, Lee,
Aye.
Lewis, Museni, McDonald, Miller,
Aye.
Way,
Aye.
Paul, Rudolph,
Aye.
Sheikh, Sitati Munene,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Ulysses, Ravina Davis.
Aye.
Great.
Thank you very much. So we are official now.
Yay.
So if I may, let's go back to following the agenda as we were before having to go back to having the roll calls for the official part. And I think the next item is we have Leslie Candaras, who's the Chief of Staff of Metro Transit, and she will have some updates on the continued collaboration between the EAC and Metro Transit's equity initiatives, right? So welcome back, Leslie.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee members, for having me. My name again is Leslie Candaras. I'm the Metro Transit Chief of Staff. And in many ways, my presentation kind of picks up where Ricky left off on the Metro Transit slide. I'm really here to provide you kind of a big picture look at some of the equity updates and initiatives we have going on at Metro Transit. But mainly, I'm hoping to have a conversation with you about how we can best partner and support you in meeting your priorities moving forward. Next slide, please. So this slide actually may look familiar to you. I was part of the September presentation when Metro Transit General Manager Wes Koistra presented to you. You also heard a Network Next update in that September meeting. And as part of that presentation, we spent a little time going through some of our equity initiatives. And one of our main messages in September was, while on one hand, Thrive MSP 2040, the Council's equity policy, other policy plans and guidance really have committed Metro Transit to evaluating our planning, operations, and investments through an equity lens. That's not new work or new commitments. What really has shifted this year, and particularly has intensified since the murder of George Floyd, the civil unrest in our communities, has been our kind of renewed efforts to develop a more intentional and deliberate approach to this work. And generally speaking, that tends to fall into three main buckets: evaluating the transit service we provide, really making sure we're leveraging and expanding programs that we know succeed in improving transit access and quality, but also investing in our organizational practices that are really critical to equitable processes and outcomes. So back in September when we presented, we went through the material really fast, and it didn't really leave a lot of time to have a discussion or to hear your thoughts. So part of why I asked to come back today is I really wanted to listen more to how this committee sees some of the work we have going on, and particularly some of this newer work to really create this more deliberate and intentional approach to just see where there are some opportunities for partnership, for engagement, for us to receive formal advice from you and so on. And so I think the timing of this is really good as well. I've been able to listen into your last few meetings, your August, September, and October meeting, and particularly as this subcommittee structure emerges, I think there is a lot of opportunity for us to create more of an ongoing relationship with Equity Advisory Committee and really make sure our interactions with you are relational and lead to transformative change and don't just occur in kind of these one-off, we have a project we want to talk to you sort of ways. We'd really like to get into more of an authentic, ongoing, enduring relationship and partnership where you have a really clear handle on the work we're doing and where we're going as a division of the Metropolitan Council, and you're able to help us see how your priorities, your work plan aligns with and is really providing direction to us as staff as we're trying to do our work. So that's kind of the big picture reason why I'm really happy to be back here tonight. Next slide, please. So this slide and the following slide are really meant to just give you kind of a sense of some of the newer work we have going on. And we talked about some of this back in September too, so I'm going to try to go through it quickly just to kind of set a baseline for the discussion. I'm hoping we will have plenty of time to have. But as you might recall, when Wes Koister, the general manager, was here back in September, he talked about how particularly following the murder of George Floyd, employees and members of the community were really pushing Metro Transit to ask, you know, what more can we be doing to advance equity, to advance anti-racism, both within Metro Transit and across our region. One of the initial steps represented in the first bullet here was we have an equity and inclusion team at Metro Transit. It's comprised of about 11 staff right now who come from a cross-section of the agency, mostly on-site essential frontline workers, operators, mechanics, police officers, who have been part of this equity and inclusion team since 2015. So this summer, the general manager asked them to really take the lead in facilitating within Metro Transit, gathering ideas, concerns, feedback from Metro Transit employees in terms of what more we can be doing as an agency. And so from June through September, that team collected about 285 comments from employees and came up with 55 recommended action steps that they delivered to senior leadership on September 30th. So one of our currently evolving pieces of work is really sorting through that staff set of recommendations to see what we can incorporate into our 2020 work plan and use to kind of further shape this work. So that staff-led piece is one chunk of work happening at Metro Transit right now. The other bullets on here came from kind of a parallel process where back in June, the general manager, in talking with employees, saw there were about 10 initial equity steps that we could just take as the equity inclusion team continued to do their work. We knew we had to do them. We needed to get started. And so some of those examples are, as the second bullet suggests, strengthening processes for really centering our work on public engagement and our riders' experiences. You heard from Robin Kaufman earlier this evening. In January of 2020, actually, the general manager really reorganized how we staffed public engagement at Metro Transit, and Robin has been part of that change, and you heard some of the changes and updates she's made to her staff's work this year and the listening and learning efforts that went on this summer to more fully kind of ground us in how the crises of this year are really shaping our riders' expectations and needs of transit. But part of our equity work going forward is really understanding how we can go not just to engage with people, but how we can make sure that engagement is actually shaping decision making. And so I think that's one core area of work we're really focused on right now. A couple other bullets on here, both the developing an equity evaluation of our quarterly service changes and developing transit equity metrics. These are two other areas of work where, on one hand, we've thought along these lines for many years. As I mentioned, Thrive very much commits us to considering our service changes and other elements of our performance through an equity lens, but we really felt we need to be doing more. And I think one of the tasks in front of us is really fleshing out what does transit equity look like and what does that mean to people and how would we measure our progress towards improving or advancing or strengthening transit equity here in our region. Related to that is also performing a budget equity analysis. I'm not sure how much this committee is actively involved in the Metropolitan Council's budget development, but this is work that almost never stops. So right now, the council's budget is actually out for public comment. The council will adopt it in December, and then that will set the 2021 budget. But right away in Q1 of 2021, staff will start anew the development process for the 2022 budget. So this year, we really said, okay, we're going to spend some time understanding the key decision points in the budget development process. So in 2021, when we're developing that 2022 budget, we can be more thoughtful and intentional in how we're viewing our budget decisions through an equity lens. Next slide, please. And so this slide is like the last one, also comprises many of those initial equity action steps that the general manager charged staff with back in June. The top bullet, identifying ways to strengthen programs that improve people's lives. Some really clear examples of this include our transit assistance program, which provides $1 rides to people with low incomes. This summer, we expanded how you can become eligible for that program. So now if you are receiving unemployment benefits or seeking asylum or a refugee, you're able to use that to qualify for TAP. Another program is our Better Bus Stops program, which has been in existence for about 5 years now, and was really developed based on community input and community concern about inequities in our shelters and our bus stops. And so this program is designed to deliberately ensure we're investing in shelter amenities and stop amenities in areas of concentrated poverty, and over time has added over 100 shelters and improved many existing shelters with speed and light. And so continuing to look at ways to invest and expand that program to better meet ongoing needs is another element of what we're considering and trying to really hone in on as part of this work. They're requiring equity to be addressed as part of the Thrive Lens analysis and business items. This one might sound a little narrow, but if you've looked at a Metropolitan Council business item, one of the categories in the template that all staff fill out when they bring business to the Metropolitan Council is to address or to provide a Thrive Lens analysis. And one of the Thrive outcomes is equity. And so since 2016, I believe, staff have been required to address how their business item or the decision they're asking council to take would affect the 5 Thrive outcomes. But even though that practice has been in existence for a long time, it's not something that is necessarily done thoroughly or evenly across all business items. So part of what we're trying to do in Metro Transit is look at that as an opportunity to really get staff to stop and think about how the decision they're proposing or the project they're advancing would affect equity. And as I was listening to some of the conversations earlier in the evening with the tool coming from the state of Minneapolis, which sounded like a racial equity tool, there might be some really natural opportunities right off the bat to kind of connect some of these different efforts to provide staff with better tools and better resources to do this type of analysis more effectively and more authentically as things move through decision-making processes. The next couple of bullets just refer to some work that at Metro Transit we're trying to do in collaboration both with Human Resources and the Office of Equal Opportunity. And I know Mitzi's slides on the 2021 work plan highlighted a lot of opportunities as it relates to HR and OEO as well. I will say one thing we've started doing within Metro Transit just since July is having HR and OEO regularly present to Metro Transit senior staff. And obviously having them come to our meetings and present alone doesn't change anything, but our hope is by providing dedicated regular space and time to have conversations to see what more can we be doing as an operating division of the council in alignment with the council's overarching approach to workforce diversity, equity, inclusion, to OEO's overall approach to ensuring we're utilizing underutilized businesses when we're contracting or making purchases. That's another tactic we're using to try to just move the needle on our equity work. And then the final two are more related to our police department. I know, I want to say it was your September meeting, the Citizens League came and presented to you an overview of the police review that the Metropolitan Council has contracted with the Citizens League to conduct. So that work, my understanding, is underway, and certainly Metro Transit and the police department are eager to participate in that. And as that work moves forward, also, we presume we'll have work to do to address and implement recommendations that come out of that process. So that's on our horizon. And similarly, the administrative citation for fare evasion, I think we spoke with this committee in the past how right now in state law, it's a misdemeanor if you don't pay to ride transit. And what that means practically is we have sworn police officers who are inspecting fares and writing citations that then go to the court system to be adjudicated. We'd like to make that process an administrative process instead of a process that goes through a court system. We would like to change that process so it doesn't have to be an officer who does fare inspection, but rather could be a different type of non-sworn personnel, whether it be a community service officer or a transit ambassador or a different class of employee. But the idea is really to bring that practice more in line with the fact that if you don't pay a fare, you're not paying $2 to ride transit in an off-peak time, but the penalty right now is $180 because of the way the law is structured. So that's something we need authority from the legislature to do. The governor has supported us seeking that authority first in 2019, and there are many iterations of that basic proposal during the 2020 session. None have become law, but we're currently working with Governor Walz's office to try to reintroduce that in the coming session. So next slide, please. And this slide is really just repackaging everything I said in the past slides, but I kind of wanted to have this on the screen when we are discussing really what is the Equity Advisory Committee most interested or eager in working with us on. I think certainly we would welcome your advice, your involvement in all of these topics. There might be other ones you're familiar with that are not on my list that absolutely should be on my list. I will say, as I was listening to Robin's presentation, I realized I should have really had a second slide with this that looked at some of our broader planning and transitway projects. What you're seeing here is really a reduction of what I just went through in terms of these equity initiatives to become more deliberate and intentional about our work. But certainly continued EAC engagement and the Network Next plan would be really valuable to us because that's the plan that's going to set our vision for our bus network until 2040. Similarly, Robin mentioned the Blue Line extension, Botno corridor, community engagement that's getting off the ground. That's another critical area of work. So I do apologize. My slide is a little kind of narrowly focused on some of these new initiatives we have going underway, but that's not meant at all to preclude involvement in some of the other transitway projects and planning projects we have going on either. So maybe I will kind of pause here and just, again, we're really interested, especially as you're thinking about your 2021 work plan, as you're thinking about how the transportation subcommittee could shape up. We are just really excited and eager to work with you in, again, kind of a more relational, continuous way instead of just popping up with projects here and there and then disappearing for months on end. So thanks again for the opportunity to speak, and I would love your questions or feedback.
Thank you, Leslie, and thanks for this thorough presentation and for the willingness of Metro Transit to work with us. Any comments, questions, suggestions I'm looking both at the chat to see for raise hands, but you can also speak up if you have a question or a comment. I have a question for Leslie. What's the name of your cat that just came on scene?
That was one of two cats. That was Herman. So he's very social. He's more extroverted than I am. And whenever he hears somebody on a video call, he needs to see what's going on. So
well, he's welcome to participate too.
Yes, thank you.
And I see Councilmember Lee. Do you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. It's just a comment. I want to thank Leslie and the team and the great staff behind you for this great presentation and this work. If we have rules that we are not enforcing ourselves along the way and reminding folks that there are certain metrics we have to live up to and fulfill, then the rules and processes that we have don't mean that much. And so whether that's looking at our financial services or contracts and DBE goals, and we have to consistently remind ourselves to keep ourselves to those standards. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, suggestions? Let me just, Anita, just please go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank Leslie for presenting to us and waiting to this part of our meeting. I appreciate it, you working late into the night with us.
No, it's
so thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Well, I had just a comment, or actually a question. As you move forward with planning and also looking at what changes to make regarding equity and the services, etc., are you making a distinction between permanent and or long-term initiatives or program versus things that we can do just to address the emergencies brought up by COVID? So I'm getting at that hopefully COVID will go away sometime in the next couple of years through vaccine or whatever, but there's some things that are happening right now that are affecting folks, but hopefully those will go away. So are you thinking of any short-term and kind of Band-Aid approaches to deal just with the issues that are happening right now and also with the more long-term ones? I hope this is clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Chair Gonzalez, thank you for that question. And I would say, yes, we're trying to both address the immediate crisis of COVID and all the impacts that has both on our riders and our employees' lives, while also being committed to coming back a stronger and better transit system. We didn't get into this in much detail when General Manager Cloister was here in September, but kind of another piece of context for this whole list in front of you here is the general manager and the senior leadership at Metro Transit, and increasingly more staff at Metro Transit, is involved in developing a strategic framework that we hope will be really our roadmap to not just return to status quo, return to some of the, frankly, problems and inequities we had before COVID, but rather use this moment in time to really deeply examine how we do business and ideally build back as a stronger transit system in the long run. Now, in the short run, I think the presentation Robin provided regarding the listening and learning through crises engagement this summer is a good example of how we're trying to put our finger on the pulse of our riders in particular to understand really the needs and expectations, particularly of people who have continued to ride transit throughout the pandemic. So while we've certainly seen a drop off in ridership, we're also providing tens of thousands of rides every day to people who are essential workers or who otherwise rely on transit to get to where they need to go. And so really in the immediate term, projects like the Listening and Learning through Crises Project Robin talked about, where we learned that issues like making sure there's enough space on a bus and making sure the bus is clean are becoming higher priorities of our riders right now, and how we can make sure within Metro Transit we're addressing that by continuing our enhanced cleaning, by continuing to put additional service on routes where we know we haven't seen the same drop off in ridership, so they might be prone to becoming overcrowded. But, you know, I would say at the same time, we're trying to kind of keep ourselves both in that immediate kind of day-to-day crisis management mode while not losing sight of, like, this is really a critical inflection point in transit. And how do we make sure we're laying the foundation to be really thoughtful about not just returning blindly to some of the problems we faced in the past, but how we can really use this to improve moving forward. And I think the equity discussion piece that I focused on tonight is just part of that broader effort. So I have no idea if I even approximated answering your question, but you touched on something that's really in the center of our minds right now.
Excellent. No, that's great. I was just thinking, I would just like to encourage the members of the AAC to think both in the short term of immediate fixes, in addition to the more long-term reforms or changes that we might want to see. Again, and just like Leslie said, because you are closer to the pulse of the community, so if you hear about some particular issue that might help solve an immediate concern, that would be great. One thing that I don't know where I saw this is they'll be either giving rebates or free tickets to people that show that they have been vaccinated for COVID when that comes, you know, if the government finally approves a vaccine, there will be like an incentive for folks to get vaccinated. You get a rebate on your yearly pass for Metro Transit or something like that. So, and of course, that will be a short-term approach just to encourage people to sign up for vaccination in the first 6-12 months when it becomes available, whatever. So I'm just encouraging everybody to think creatively with the things that are happening right now, in addition to the more long-term and structure matters. Any other comments, questions, suggestions? Looking for raised hands on my side screen here. No? Okay. If folks have any questions or suggestions, can they email you directly, or you prefer that we send those to staff and then they will share those with you?
You are welcome to contact me directly. In fact, I think there's one more slide where
excellent.
Maybe where I put my contact information if it's still there. Yes. So that's my phone number, my email. Feel free to reach out to me. I know this is a lot to digest and think about, so certainly don't hesitate to reach out to me after the meeting if you want to talk more about what I covered tonight, or if you just have more ideas or questions about other topics. So thank you again for the time. I really appreciate it.
Well, no, thank you for being available tonight. Thanks.
Right.
And then, Leslie, hopefully the next step will be to reach out to you to schedule time for you to meet with the Transportation Subcommittee.
That would be amazing. Yes. Yeah, thank you.
And thanks, Mitzi, for reminding me that thank you to all the folks that have expressed an interest on the transportation. I know that there were several folks that were initially interested, and then some others that came later also showing an interest. So thank you all for your willingness to serve in that subcommittee. Thank you, Leslie. All right. So I think we are moving a little bit ahead of our schedule here. So the last item on the agenda that we have for today is we're just opening it up to any other discussions and announcements that folks might have. And let me just start with the first announcement before I forget, and that's the standing committee is continuing to meet virtually via WebEx, and the next standing committee meeting is Tuesday, November 20, from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And as we always mention that your participation in the standing committee is critical. That's the place where we set the agenda, we discuss which items to bring forth for consideration before the EAC. That's also where we share any gossip that we might have about what's going on with the Met Council. So we definitely encourage everyone to participate, and it's open to all the members. There's no executive committee or anything like that. So all the members, any and all members are more than welcome to participate and help shape the discussion at the standing committee. And one last announcement or suggestion that I will make is that as it was mentioned before, I believe it was by Leslie or by Robin about the budget. The Met Council is indeed working on setting the budget for next year, and we're getting gathering public input, public comment on this at this time. I don't think I have to mention that there will be a severe budget shortfalls, which means that there will be some decisions that will have to be made about, where to refocus resources and programs. So it's really critical that the council hears directly from the public on those services that you consider critical, any areas that will need more resources or that you think are not working properly and that or are not needed. So your input it's gonna be key in helping the council decide how to adapt to the very tough financial landscape that we will have for next year, and I also imagine for the following year too, for 2022. So your engagement will be greatly appreciated, and please encourage any other folks from your networks to also chime in and let us know what they think as far as the budget is concerned. Any other comments, suggestions, announcements? Nalima, any comments or suggestions at this time?
No, I don't have any. Thank you. Just to encourage folks once again to participate in the standing committee meeting.
Yes, thank you. Anything else? No? Okay. I think we're just a little bit ahead of schedule. I think that's a first at the EAC. So if there isn't anything else, thank you very much. That concludes our agenda for tonight. And seeing no further comments or questions, then I will officially adjourn the meeting.